public goods under the Project Sunbird. These digital building blocks are used to provide learning opportunities for 200 million children in India, and also other learning and skilling and capacity building efforts in India and other countries. But what I'm so impressed about what Pramod has been doing, in fact, we're just reminiscing old times. This is how old we are in the Silicon Valley days and his startup in US, and then how it grows over time. And the whole Aadhaar has been very impressive. And the ability to reach 1.2 billion people in India is such a record-breaking for 7 years span. I could go on and on to describe who he is and what a hero he is. And in my mind, he is the role model we must clone. And hopefully through this event, we'll be able to have a virtual cloning and learning from osmosis to you. So without further ado, I would like to, let's give him a round of warm applause. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Leslie. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah. Quite energizing, by the way, to see so many young people.
And online, virtually as well.
Yes.
That they are going to benefit so much from your wisdom. Now, maybe we'll kind of start talking about your early days, since we're talking about youth. In fact, just now as we were speaking and introducing some of the topics, you recognized Matt. Maybe you can describe, I know this is off script, but it's such a beautiful story. Can you describe some of the work you did with his father?
That tells you how old I am. It's a pretty bad idea, right? Yeah. So
He's a legend.
Matt, not here, he's here.
Yeah, he's out there,
outside.
manning the booth.
So I worked with his father before he was born. I worked with his father, and we did a startup in Boston, Massachusetts. We had an exceedingly high quality engineering and product team. And his father was one of them. Brilliant guy. No wonder he's better than his father. Yeah, I suppose. Never met him. I came back to India in 2003 to set up our engineering organization in Bangalore and continue to build. In 2005, we got acquired. He says he was born in 2003, so I probably missed his birth. And I bump into him today. That's a wonderful story, and he's grown up, and he's, like his father, probably handsome. I think more handsome than his father. So, Matt, such a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, that's why it's such an important event where we connect the young leaders with the current leaders and learn from them. So maybe we'll kind of start at the beginning to help us understand your story better and your inspiration, and talk about your upbringing and how has that shaped your core values that leads to your amazing career so far.
Okay, yeah, that's long time ago. They lived. Okay, this is not a story. Anyway, so India. Most of the Indians will recognize India's beauty is in its diversity and extreme diversity in everything, right? In language, in behavior, and the culture, and the food. Most of us probably don't even speak the same language. Hindi is somewhat connecting because of the movements of people. And it continue to be the heartland still speaks Hindi. So quite a lot of people speaking that. But colonization meant a lot of the education probably was in English. But I grew up in a very small town. That actually meant, that sets a lot of value systems. I think that's where our value systems were set. I never spoke a word of English or couldn't say sentences until I went to college. So I didn't even learn in English medium. Very typical 1970s boy from a small town. Never heard of IIT. I never went to IIT. IIT is one of the premier institutions here. It's the place to go if you're an engineering kid, right? Never heard of it, never went there. So it's actually meant that a lot of my upbringing was based on value systems, based on my parents never put pressure on us. So it allowed us to take our own decisions. And I think I have two girls, so I tell both of them, and one of them went to Harvard. So both of them actually are very, very independent kids as well. So really it meant I had to do a long marathon race in competing. India's, you can see it's highly, very, very competitive. So to compete in the industry, it was quite hard work for me. And I think it was good. It was good because nothing was given to me, that easily, early days. So I had to struggle to get through. And then I think that sets up few basic things. I think we were very, very, I enjoyed culture, diversity. I enjoyed meeting people, very empathetic to a common person's life, what it means to be, be a common man in India, and no free access, no privileged access to anything. So a lot of that, I think, later helped me make that shift. But subsequently, of course, I did my master's in mathematics and subsequent computer science and PhD and all that thing. But yeah, there's just, then I went into industry. So I was in startup world pretty much very early. 95, we started the company in Boston. And it was an excellent product journey for me. That's where I set so the 2-3 things, right? And I think the growing up was a small town boy. We are matriarchal in Kerala. Wow. We are not a patriarchal society. So women dominated our family.
Awesome. I should visit one day.
Women are always right. It doesn't matter, right? There's no question asked. So I'm surrounded by women. I have 2 girls. My grandmother is 104. She's still alive.
Oh my
Very,
goodness.
very
amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Matriarchal society. Yeah. So that actually allowed us to be, I think, much better, I suppose.
More balanced.
More balanced, yeah.
Thank
More
you.
balanced, very, very respectful and so on. But when we did the shifting from college days, doing master's and PhD allowed me to work on abstract concepts. I think that really, really helped imagine futures that didn't exist. So imagining futures that don't exist, imagining future that you don't know how it's going to be shaping, it's a very abstract thinking. And you're only working on few ideas that you are very confident about, but you don't know how the form and shape is going to be later. So I think it's very, very critical to think abstract if you want to imagine, because you have no idea how the future is going to be turn out, right? It's going to turn out. So that really helped. Then startup, the product startup, it was a product company. India was very much a services industry then. Startup world didn't happen in 90s, right? Mostly Infosys, TCS, all this services company. So that's why we moved to US. We moved to US to do the product startup. It was easier to raise funds there and so on. And we raised a couple of rounds of funds. And there I learned what it means to build software products, so large-scale digital platforms that you are not building it as a one-time effort. Product companies teach you to build, it's like your baby. And like an entrepreneur, right? You have to really work with it, build it to evolve, build it to scale, build it to be flexible, and you can't wish away. It's like your children, right? They're going to hang around for a while, and it's your children. So you really need to, tender loving care of the product. And that's a very different culture. And that product culture is, I think, shaped my thinking in building something really big. And our customers were Best Buy, JCPenney, Macy's, Target, name a retailer in the US, or FedEx, DHL worldwide, and so on. So very, very high scale, very, very high scale. So I managed to work with scale, managed to work with evolving products. How do you architect something that can evolve into a future that you don't know. So that's an art of designing that, right? In pieces of the puzzle that you need to put together to shape it later, because you don't know what the shape is going to be. And then scale it really well, and then laser focused on value, deriving value to your customer. Nothing matters. You can talk about all the features that you're building in your system, all the features until the cows come home. No one gives a damn. No one cares. They care about value they derive from your product. So engineers are notorious in explaining what you do in your features, but it's very, for the customer, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's about value. So I think we learned that in the nearly 20 years of that effort. And then the third innings, my third innings, 2009, midlife crisis, so I quit all that thing. And when Dr. Manmohan Singh, then the Prime Minister, announced that Nandan Nilekani, one of, sort of, if you were Bill Gates of India, doing very, very thought leader in systems thinking, large-scale, complex systems thinking. He was invited as a cabinet minister he quit Infosys, invited to take on Aadhaar, the identity project, digital identity project. I quit my job. The moment the newspaper came, reading that day morning newspaper, I don't read newspaper otherwise, okay. Yeah, but I did one of those things. I read newspaper, then I do see this news, and then I get in touch with him through my old connects, and then I told him that I want to join, I want to volunteer for Aadhaar. And then I became the chief architect of Aadhaar, and then no going back. Aadhaar and DigiLocker and UPI and now account aggregator and ONDC, and we'll talk about some of that. So long journey. I think we're not done though. We have a long way to go, and I have a long way to go, I think, unless some truck hits me or something. But otherwise, I will hang around for a while. I have good genes, by the way. Yeah, so I'll hang around for a while and I'm hoping to do another decade at least of building population scale infrastructure that can transform society at scale, not pockets, and then go on to my fourth innings, which is art. So I come from an artist family. I come from Raja Ravi Varma family, artist Raja Ravi Varma. So maybe that's my fourth innings. So
wow.
Good fun ahead.
Amazing journey. My goodness. I did not know some of the details that you mentioned today. I read a lot about your technology work because I'm a big fan of your work. And because in some ways we share some paths, we just have never really come together and work on some things in the past, because I was in Silicon Valley as well and building solutions and products at that time before the whole .com crash and back in those days. But I love how you persist and build those components and really and then evolve that. Maybe we can touch upon some of the nuances, because I love to get into details on your startup at that time, some of the challenges that you encountered there at that time in the younger days, and then see how that evolved and shaped your thinking when you went into doing the scale out work at Aadhaar.
Of course, yeah. So as I was saying, 95, we founded that company in Massachusetts. It was a product company, tech software product company in retail supply chain. Always exciting. Supply chain work is always exciting, because that's pretty much how most of economy works, right? Deep, complex supply chains. And if you start digitizing them, and if you start imagining possibilities around how digital can transform that, it's always exciting. And it was an internet era. The 95 was sort of perfect setting up. I started working with internet in around 91, 92, pre-HTTP, sort of Gopher protocols and so on. So we were in the universities. Right? The university networks were already connected. So we were already working with that. And because of the internet, 95, it was already clear, starting to get clear, the internet is going to transform. And supply chain is one of those first things that actually gets very efficiently transformed using digital. because global supply chains are complex and a lot of information asymmetry, trust asymmetry, inefficiency that actually come from paperwork. And because supply chains are never in your company, it's always multi-company, right? It's never an intranet kind of setup. It's an extranet with many partners. And when we were working with Reebok, for example, Reebok had the factories in India. They used to procure, source their leather products, Reebok shoes. We were working with Rockport, a company called Rockport. Brilliant shoes, by the way. They had got acquired by Reebok later. So they source a lot from Asia. And imagine the pre-internet world, how those communication would have been. People would fax some paper. They would say, this is how you need to label it, custom clearance. All that paperwork was very inefficient. And they're sending it to folks in Agra and all that things. So think about it, right? India was a very different country pre-92. 92 is when we opened up, right? Pre-92, it was, we had gone down an extremely socialistic model, government-driven socialism, which didn't work for us, frankly speaking, and it was blowing up. So we had to change. So during that time, 95 was a perfect time where the India was opening up, Asia was getting connected to the real markets, both Europe and US, they were the buyers, right, most of them. And manufacturing outsourcing was already starting to happen big time to Asia. China, of course, dominated quite a lot there as well. India didn't do, other than few. Apparel, shoes was, we did good job. But also our excitement was about the possibility of internet that could bring efficiency, trust, and remove the information asymmetry, remove trainings. We could imagine all the possibilities of bringing value to the entire supply chain. So we were 10 people, literally, around 8 people, 9 people when we started. And we had a brilliant CEO who was quite a visionary by himself, and he could push the boundaries in imagining. And again, as a CEO, he knew the value comes from the product. So I think we spent, as product architect, I was the chief architect of the product even then, the platform we built. And we had a lot of interesting conversations. So the things like, these are what you don't learn in college, frankly. In college, you learn very, very, what call a happy flow, happy stuff. But then everything goes wrong, right? Everything is different when you start working. And when you actually get to the company, you realize you are not a computer scientist or you're not a computer tech architect anymore. You are value architect. You have to remember, you have to understand why is even customer asking for this? What is the value customer? What is the care of the customer? What are the concerns of the customer? So that we can build stuff that takes care of their care. And when we take care of their care, they love you. They love you for it. And not even a single customer. 0 customers left us. 0. So we owned everyone, named retailer. So that's great learning for us. But from a technology perspective, we were very ahead, by the way. A math father and all have all these stories. We were building entirely, not bits and pieces. Our entire platform was what's called API-based platform, Application Programming Interface, 98.
Wow.
This is 1998. We were building only APIs. And this is the pre-AWS, pre-Stripe, pre-API internet platform world. Internet platforms brought like Google, Facebook API. API became a big thing, right? For subsequently to build even more. But we were building, we had 1,000 supply chain, transportation, warehousing, inventory management, global inventory visibility, and pricing, cataloging, all those modules only as APIs. So this is one of those things that people say, what's API? What am I going to do with it? Where are the screens? And I, as chief architect, would say, screens can be built. Screens will be built. Workflows will be built, but they will change. My fundamental assumption in architecture is twofold. Everything I'm building will change. Second, everything I'm building will fail. To learning. Okay? If you assume nothing will fail and everything will stick, fundamentally you are actually wrong. Okay? So in an evolvable product, if you're doing a one-time project, it's not so bad, right? You sort of do the project and move on. But in a product world, which actually lasts for a decade plus, the product is still exists. Actually, IBM subsequently acquired everything. It's in part of IBM's fold now. Some of my friends still work in IBM. But so the foundational constructs that you build for customers' care, you take care of customer care. Second, everything you build will change. And third, everything you build, you will fail. So question you're asking always is that how do you build stuff that allows that change to happen? Allow that flexibility to happen. And the second question you're asking is that how do you build stuff that is resilient to failure, not failure proof? You can never build stuff that is failure proof. So resilient to failure. So resilience and evolvability were the two constructs that were so foundational in the way I architected things in there. That's why we were naturally building API-based, what we call Lego blocks. Because if you build Lego blocks, I can change the shape and form. Mm-hmm. Because I can construct a house and then you don't like the house with that Lego block. I actually want slightly different. I can reconstruct, rebuild without rebuilding the whole thing again. So the fundamental idea of digital building blocks, that you build everything as independent building blocks, you break it down, what's called unbundle in your mind and build these building blocks. Then you ask the question, what does the customer want today? Today, I will construct those workflows, or assemble those workflows, assemble those screens and give it to you, knowing that 6 months later, you would ask me something else. I'm okay with that because I can build any other screens on top of it because I didn't have to build the whole thing. I built everything. And so generalization, configurability, building block thinking, all comes from those two things, right? That whatever you build is going to change. And the resilience comes from the scale thinking. When you do millions of transactions every day, it's bound to fail. Bound to fail. And when you fail, so as an architect, you are not thinking how to make it failure proof. You are always thinking when it fails, because it's guaranteed to fail, pieces of the puzzle, what will the system do? Mm-hmm. When people fail, processes fail, computers burn, disks crash, network stops, everything that can go wrong will go wrong.
And in today's world,
cybersecurity.
That's right.
Absolute. And security was even then, by the way. Cybersecurity was small, but the silly assumptions human beings make, okay? That we'll make all kinds of Word documents. We'll say, this is how you should do, this is you should come in, you should do this check, you should do this check, and nobody follows it.
Yep. Because you put it on the shelf and forget about it.
No one reads your Word documents or any documents, okay? When that happens, you are always assuming, so you make a lot of assumptions that's how systems are going to work. And then you realize nothing works that way. So it's a very important construct. Why is it important? I'm saying the few things that shape the way I think about evolving multi-decade architectures. Mm-hmm. Architecture. I think that set me up extremely well for Aadhaar and UPI and so on. Okay, very, very well said, because that was a scale of very different, complexity of different. But then you realize as a technologist, you are not actually a technologist. You have to use your technology to produce value, and value at scale. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do at scale, then you have to worry about failure, evolvability, and all that thing. That's what I really learned. So I think those learnings were so crucial to sort of have humble you into realizing that you know nothing. And whatever you think you know is changing. So you become a natural, lifelong learner. That's what happened to me. I mean, you realize that everything you just literally throw out and learn again and again and again and again. And second thing you do, to learn, you have to collaborate. That's second thing I learned as a product company. You're shamelessly collaborating and shamelessly asking people, what do you actually think? Do you think it's going to work? Not going to work? I think those two behaviors and these two architecture constructs, everything failed, everything changed. These two architecture constructs set me up for my third decade.
Well said. Well said. I consider you as like the godfather of these concepts because you are so ahead of our times and many folks wanted to do what you did, but they couldn't because they're missing some of the elements. And just now when we're chatting about designing something that could outlast our lifetime is with these kind of design principles. And that to me is fundamentally very important because I gained an appreciation of that in my early days designing financial system, fintech, how do you evolve over time? And fintech in some description is about bundling and unbundling services in the space. And the fact that you're building these kind of agile model and then scaling it up over time and creating that kind of resilience and to build for failure, right? And that is such an important principle. I really take that to heart. And many of the architects around the world that I've talked to in the past write these blueprints and then nobody reads them, like you said. And I love the way you put it so eloquently. So I think it's a nice segue into talking about Aadhaar because this has been one of the most touted systems and ability to reach 1.3. Was that 1.3 or 1.2 billion?
Now 1.33 billion.
Oh my God, 1.3, so congratulations. This is truly a phenomenal effort, but maybe you can share with us some of the early thinking. I can sense how you evolve into this, but I think it must have been a ginormous effort. Did you imagine you're going to reach that population at that early stage?
We totally imagined it, by the way. Okay, so few things we did really well under Nandan's leadership. So 2009 is when, June is when he was asked to come in. And in June itself, I quit and started volunteering for it. And then July, the authority was formulating. By August, authority was formulated. So we were in Bangalore, some small room. Delhi, we had a tiny planning commission, now Niti Aayog. Small building room. They gave us saying that, okay, you hang around here. Literally 3-4 people, couple of bureaucrats, our CEO, early CEO, Dr. Ram Sevak Sarman, right now looking at health stack. He's looking after that. And Nandan was there. And then a couple of us from the tech side was there in Bangalore. A few things we did well. I think Nandan said, first of all, tech folks stay in Bangalore. Don't show up in Delhi. Okay. So, because, it's going to be very different. I think it's just you stay focused in designing the platform. Because the challenges were both political challenges of scaling to, we have 600 plus thousand villages, 600,000 villages, 1.3, 1.4 billion people. We speak 22 official languages, but in Bangalore alone, active 109 languages are used. Because you can see the diversity of India, which is also beauty, because I think we are freaking resilient because of that. Because we have nothing works here, I think. Everything is in chaos. We are purposely in that entropy mode, right? High entropy mode. So I think it really works probably, So it was daunting to imagine. But the best part was that exactly is what allowed us to design to that scale. If the number was 10 million or 5 million, we didn't have to stretch ourselves. Not much.
Yeah.
What's a big deal, right? 100 million was a pilot.
Wow.
When we reached 100 million, Aadhaar was still called a pilot.
Amazing.
Because we were less than 10%. We were 90 plus percentages yet to cover. So this is, it was still a pilot. That's like several countries by then. We were already covered, right? And you're still calling us pilot. Yes, he's still pilot. You're not real, right? So first thing Nandan did is in 2009, he promised Dr. Manmohan Singh in that 4 years, he will reach 600 million people. 600 million people. And we asked him, are you sure? 600 million you went and promised to Prime Minister? He said, either we are going to be utter failure. So that was the answer, right?
Oh, wow.
I'm going to show up 1 year later, go back from Delhi because none of us can deal with it. And this is utter failure, come back. Or we're going to make it.
Yeah.
The effort, he said, effort all of you are going to put in is same. You're not going to sleep. You're going to be working like crazy and you're going to be thinking so big that all your understanding of how to do things go out of your window. Because every model that we knew, project management, technology models, just wouldn't work for this scale. 4 years, 600 million. That actually meant, so we did few things. We were humbled so bad in the sense that we had no freaking clue how we are going to do this. But that allowed us to collaborate. Otherwise, we would have been in a very comfortable zone. We would have been a comfortable zone that we know how to do things. We know how to do tech. The moment if we had assumed that, we would have been a failure. So his promise that 600 million set the goal so audacious, so large that everything we knew how to do things didn't work. That, I think it was a very big starting point. So think really big, okay? Because you're going to be anyway working really hard, okay? Because nothing comes free in life. Anyway, you're going to be just bloody on whatever startup you're going to do. You can as well think really big. Why think small? So that's why when we started Foundation, we said 200 million children in 5 years we'll reach. 2 million is easy. 10 million is a little bit stretched. 200 million, we have no idea. That's a good situation to be in. That's a very good situation to be in. That allows you to think completely out of the box, collaborate like crazy, shamelessly suck everybody's brain, and then so that you can actually get it. Because you don't know how to do it, right? Second thing, when we asked our technology folks, Aadhaar, they had part of UID was the uniqueness of Aadhaar. So one person gets only one Aadhaar, and that person can't get another Aadhaar. And we knew the only way we can get it done in India is through biometrics, fingerprint, face, and iris. Then because face was not yet, the technologies around face was not yet there. So we had multi-modal biometrics because we only have 40% of India registering birth. So we don't have birth register like in the developed nations. So we have nothing that tells you that you hang around in India, by the way. Right? All of you don't realize it. You are way too privileged. So, but many people have no paperwork to show their existence. What happens though is that India in 2009 was spending 2.5% of the GDP, 18% of budget on direct benefits transfer. That was then about $50,000 US. Now it's about 75,000 or even more. 1,000 every year. The money was supposed to go to the poor people. But if you don't know who they are, and if they can't even prove who they are, then someone is taking the money out of the system. That's all it means, right? Money is going, but it's probably not going to the right people.
Yeah.
So it was absolutely on top leaders' mind that we need to do two things. We must make sure that every individual in this country can claim her identity rights, that I am who I claim to be. I am so-and-so, I am who I claim to be, I live in this address, and that has to be high trust identity proof that every person can do. The moment that gets done, we realize using that digital identity, we can bring financial inclusion. And when we have financial inclusion, when we have open bank account, we could move money directly to people. And that was the starting point of the identity, right? So that was very, very powerful. It also meant when we spoke to a few of the people in the US who were US visit program, and you go to US visit, most of the aliens have to give, sort of our fingerprints, right? When you enter. Yeah, that was the largest system. Probably the second largest even now after Aadhaar. Maybe Indonesian system is probably similar.
It's coming. I was going to comment on Indonesia because Indonesia about 270 million people, and it's evolving. And because we have a group called ID4D. And this has been a project, a labor of love. So
absolutely, yeah. And really Indonesia is one of the largest, second largest after India, implementing identity program. This actually, most of the biometric experts told us. So imagine we were asking a question to people. Experts who are in fingerprint, Professor Anil Jain, who actually teaches most of there are two professors right here in IIIT, and who are biometric experts, or Anil Jain's students, by the way. The Professor Anil Jain is retired, Michigan State, I think. So we asked him, do you think it's going to work for 1 billion people? And the answer wasn't too good. He said, not very sure. And a couple of them, Professor Wayman, he also said, it might theoretically work, but you will need a soccer field full of $1 million computers to probably deduplicate 1 billion people, because it's a n-square problem, right? Everyone who would come in had to be deduplicated with everyone else before to get your unique identity. And when we do 4 years, 600 million, and the first year is to launch, you can never take off immediately. The hockey stick curve goes slow and then takes off. So we had a year by the time we could actually scale and launch and scale. Then we had 3 years left to 600 million, because the last year is election year in India. Election year, nothing happens because everybody is in the election mode. So, because political, that's what happens. So we have to be very, very strategically correct. That means 3.5 years at best we're going to get to 600 million. That actually we calculated about 1 million to 1.5 million people every day enrolling into Aadhaar, who had to be deduplicated with everybody in the system. And if you don't do it, next day, another 1.5 million people are going to join, right? So that's like Australia in 20 days. It's like that, right? So you think of that way. So, that's a scale that we were going. And that meant few things as well. And so simplicity was one of the principles we applied. If you want to scale to this, you have to keep it absolutely primitive, simple. And simplicity allowed us subsequently with a privacy argument. Our Aadhaar is the only identity system in the world, only one, which has only 4 attributes in the system. Name, date of birth, gender, address, and your fingerprint to make you unique. It's not used for anything else. That's it. We capture nothing else. No locations, not where you are authenticating. It's kept for a few days and then we trash sort it, all under the law now, right? So it helped really privacy other than scale. The simplicity allowed scale. Why is it? For our diversity of people, every additional question we would ask will mean exclusion.
Good point.
You ask because you people who grew up in India, you would see these things called father/husband, right? And it feels like that in our forms, in government forms, if you fill it up. We removed all that thing. We said, what happens to, just a lady who is living by herself or an orphan child? What are you going to fill? And if they can't fill, they can't get to the ID system. So the more we ask, the less people would come in. That means we had to but that really helped privacy later. But I think it allowed scale. Scale is not technology scale. Scale of operation, scale of process, scale of adoption, right? That's what very, very key for us. And then we kept it absolutely to the minimum. So Aadhaar does only that. So the simplicity of Aadhaar, though, is that we capture 4 attributes, we deduplicate you and give you an identity, and the only things we do is when you go to a bank and say, I am so and so, they can actually authenticate that claim, identity claim, with a yes or no or digital KYC. That's it. So we kept it so simple that actually really allowed us to scale. The beauty was that we reached 600 million people in 3.5 years.
Wow.
Since launch. So we launched in 2010, and after 2011, 2014, March, before the government ended its term in May, we were already 600 million people. Why 600 million people? That would have been the largest system in India by then and would have become irreversible.
Wow.
That was very key for us. We wanted to make sure the next government is not reversing it.
Brilliant.
Because
Great
almost all
minds.
projects, that's what happens. When you build, you look for sustainability. For sustainability, you have to allow what will it sustain? Why would it sustain? Beyond your time, beyond leaders' time, beyond that's you have to analyze that very carefully. What are the reasons for it to be taken out of the game? If you're a private company, competitors coming through left field attacks or new Web3 style technologies, it's just right off coming and taking you on. Or a government system is typically political leadership changing. And we need to analyze this very carefully. And so the scale, reach, and then we also made sure, and if you only focused on issuance of the identity, we would have failed. Because that's almost bad looking, other laminated, card is the least exciting thing. Okay.
And it's very expensive to roll it out as well.
No, actually, it was for India. It was very cheap. So when we analyzed, the UK identity was about £150 at that time. The identity system we did in $1 per person.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were about 80 rupees per person. We were very cheap. It didn't cost us anything to roll this out. And then it's amazing. We only spent $1 billion for 1 billion people. So it's literally $1 per person. So it's very cheap. But one of the things we did is look for a killer application. If that identity, if millions of people are not using that identity at least a month, once in a month, it would be dead. People would get it, file it, forget it, nobody uses it. So everything in our mind was about a demand side thinking, not supply side thinking. We are very good at supply side thinking. We think about features, products, we'll do all that thing, we'll pump money, all that thing. Demand side is very, very harsh truth, okay? Because no one cares. It's like our recently WhatsApp launched UPI drive and gave a lot of money, and everybody took the money, and the next month they went back to Google Pay and Phone Pay. So this is one of those things. This is just, if you're giving free money, I would happily take it, right? Indians would happily take it. No big deal at all. And so they all signed up, took the $100 rupees or whatever, 200 rupees they were getting, and they all moved on. So demand is about sustained usage. Sustained usage of your product, what you are creating. And for us, it was Aadhaar, right? For us, Aadhaar use means Aadhaar is used to do something. And that killer application for us was bank account opening. And that's what, in 2009, we were only 17% of Indians had bank account. Think about all your parents had it. 2008 to 2009 is when both iPhone and Android is launched. So imagine post-internet, smartphone era beginning, and we were still sub 20% bank account penetration. That's pathetically low for a country like us. And that holy grail of everyone having a bank account was elusive for us. We were not getting it. It was very hard. 600,000 villages. Banks wouldn't go. It's unfair to ask banks to go open offices in 600,000 villages, employees there. It's not viable when people are putting $50 in the bank account, right? 50 rupees, 100 rupees. Why would they open? They won't open. It's not business viable. So they wouldn't do. But what we made sure is that we completely collapsed the cost of starting a bank account. That's what Aadhaar did. So with Aadhaar, you could literally open a bank account in 2 rupees or 5 rupees. Otherwise, it would have been 150 rupees, $2. Cost to open a bank account, it became pennies. Such a small amount, zero paperwork, and plus political and central bank leadership pushing for bank account, then the program, bank account. We went from sub 20% in 2009. In 6 years, flat, we went to 80%, 80, 85%. Now we are 90%.
Wow. Okay. Remarkable. What
so those two, I think Aadhaar using for bank account and then moving the money. Currently, we move out $75 billion last year. 75 billion US dollars was directly deposited in the people's account last year. No middleman in the system. Fertilizer subsidy or cooking gas subsidy, very common among middle class. It used to be common at least. Women's scholarship, farmer subsidies, pregnant women program like Janani Suraksha Yojana, all that program, all of them are going directly to bank account. There's no more cash, no more middleman. It's just amazing. That is why even today, 1.2 billion authentication happen every month on Aadhaar system.
Wow. Brilliant.
That means that tells you every month, 1.2 billion times people are digitally authenticating and using it to avail something in this country. Not you and I, because we are super privileged, but that means really the masses are using it. That's a great metric to do.
That is when you can show value to the people.
Sustained value.
Amazing. Real life examples unfolding in front of your eyes. And this is the kind of story I always wanted to highlight in the work around tech for good and tech for sustainability. And what you just articulate is such a heartwarming story, so inspiring.
It is,
and we really want to take that lesson to Indonesia as an example and many other developing countries where this could be a game changer for them. In fact, besides the financial sector, the healthcare sector is just as important. I was just describing how Indonesia is going to just launch the Indonesia One Health system. And they want to have this aspiration of having this interoperability of the across different providers, clinics, hospitals, and such. I think this could be a very important digital foundation to build all that services for healthcare, not just banking services. I spent over 10 years in healthcare. I know how important it is. In US tried to do it, but we didn't really quite manage. But I'm hoping that Indonesia, I'm rooting for them to do that and love to invite you over to speak about that as well. Now, I understand the smashing success and very impressive track record of Aadhaar. If you were to ever have to think about rewinding back in time, was there anything that you say, I wish I've done that better?
No, actually nothing particularly. No, I think given that it was a government program. I think we were. It's amazing. Government opened up a lot. We are not government officials, right? We were all private sector volunteering to participate. But they embraced really well and they did extremely well. But if I were to do the identity project today, if I were to start today, my few things I would obviously leverage, as our mentor Nandan always says, trend is your friend. And you need to know, you have to always ride the trend. And the people who can see the trend coming can ride that well. And when you ride that well, it's very powerful. Never design for the past because that's gone. Trend is somewhere else. We point where the direction where the world is going. And then you can reasonably align, which you can't perfectly align. You can reasonably align. And that's a very powerful thing. So I think if I were to design today, I would have done few different things like, leverage smartphones to fully, Indians are very, very smartphone, very aspirational with geo effect and so on. We have the cheapest data plans in the world, right? We pay 10 cents a gigabyte every day. So it's very, very, very cheap data here. So I would leverage all that thing to reduce paper part of the Aadhaar a lot more than if I could. But 2009, it was I think we did a pretty good job, I suppose. Yeah.
That's amazing. Because I think the only other country that's of this size is China, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this is one that really, I'm actually curious. It's not something we've discussed before. Your observation between what India did and what China has done so far, especially in the e-commerce side, right? Because China has amazing success in e-commerce. What's your thoughts when you start looking at these two?
So we see four models. And of course, the smaller country like Estonia and so on has done, but a million people, couple of million people, very uniform, very almost non-comparable. I mean, you can't do anything in India looking at Estonia because it's not even, probably the campus has more people than Estonia. So it's very, very tough. For us, we see four models. US continue to be very, very, very capitalistic, business friendly, leave it to entrepreneurs, don't mess it up, regulators stay out from pretty much everything. The only antennas that they go up is anti-competitive. Today I think Lina Khan, Competitive Commission, is focused on big tech.
Yep.
But that has happened before. AT&T, Bell Labs, and in the US always has done that. Break big tech up. It's a standard cycle. US goes on. But US doesn't come in the way of building. I think it was serendipity that US internet actually came out of US. I think it was just someone didn't know how to monetize internet, I think. If they knew it, we would have been subscribing like Netflix today to internet. It would not have been, given US way of doing, somebody would have built internet outside as private good, a Facebook internet, a Netflix internet, and you can subscribe to it and so on, right? Very much a possibility. And it didn't happen because I think it was just a university effort. Nobody thought it would really work, and until it worked. And so they left it, I think, there. But US, that's the last public good that came out of US. Or maybe GPS 2009. I think that's pretty much the last one. They did not. After that, big techs continued to dominate, and that's there is a good and bad about that model. Europe is just mostly focusing on legal. I think they don't trust the government. They don't trust private companies. They don't. They sort of keep in the legal. So GDPR came out of first, EU E-Commerce Act, Interoperability Act, Messaging Interoperability, USB, and they forced Apple to give the USB Type-C, USB, right? Because they said, no, we can't have all these charges. And they immediately passed laws. They're very strong legally. So a lot of us look at Europe for the legal way of thinking.
Yeah.
Very strong thinking. And socialistic in their mind, typically, I think most countries there. So I think that is helping, but they don't know how to tackle the actual problem, I think, other than legal. So we take legal part from that. We want to take capitalistic part from the US because entrepreneurs are very vibrant, innovating economy. And we don't want to take anything much from China, frankly speaking. But it works for China really well. And nothing right about these models, right? These countries cruised along so well for them, but it will not work in India. India would continue to be a democracy. India would continue to be, even if it's messy democracy, we'll continue to mess it up, but we'll be a democracy. And we will be an open market. Two things that we will always be. We'll never go back to pre-92 closed market scenario. We will be always an open market. We are a very large consumption market. 1.4 billion people is very attractive. And we are, poverty is going down very rapidly, which also means obesity and everything else coming along because people are aspirational, people have money to spend. So that also means unhealthy habits. But nevertheless, I think that's a lot of consumption market. Yeah. So that I think, so we will continue to be an open market, we'll continue to democracy. So we have to derive our own models. China, government is we continue to see this play. Yeah. They are in absolute control of the systems there. They have duopolies, monopoly, but government are very much in control of that. For us, so the real fourth model is India model. I think that's where I think a lot of Southeast Asia, African countries, LATAM countries are looking at saying that we can't connect with any of those other three models. We can't be like Europe, like only US. You can't be like China for sure. We can't be like US purely giving it up to the big tech because they still have a population that needs to be taken care. So I think India model sets that up very well, where we are saying three things coming together. A regulatory and governing or regulatory or a systemic support for innovation. So we want innovation to continue, but regulatory point of view, we will only insist on two things: interoperability and portability. I'll tell you what are the two things. Why is it? Interoperability is key to ensure that its walled gardens are not being created, that I can interoperate between systems seamlessly, like UPI did. We could have just lived with just Paytm, and Vijay is a great guy. I mean, he's doing fantastic. He set the tone for our QR code mobile payment in the country, no question about it, right? But we were still looking at a systemic risk. We are saying that no, we can't, as a country, for 1 billion people, we can't have one app. That it doesn't make sense, because a lady who is a street vendor in Chidambaram in Tamil Nadu, would need a very different user experience and training and capacity building and support compared to Hindi speaking but urban middle class or upper middle class person in Mumbai. And so it's so different that diversity necessitates multiple players for us. That necessitates interoperability. That's why regulator would focus on that. And the second thing we are saying is portability of your assets. That means your credentials, your data. India is setting the data protection and data empowerment law that is like GDPR, very similar to GDPR, where you can own your own data. But we are also setting up a digital infrastructure. I don't know whether you heard something like account aggregator that it just went live. That it was the first financial data that allows individuals, every one of 1 billion people, to own and control their digital footprints, because Indians did not have physical assets, most Indians. So collateralizing, we were talking to him in the morning, right? Farmers and skilled blue collar workers, they can't collateralize anything physical, but they can collateralize their flow of business, their business right now, but only when my business and my data and my bill payments and my behaviors, my rating in my company are all can be converted into a digitally verifiable set of data elements. That tells me that using this now, I can actually say I need a 3-month, lending offer that allows me to do cash flow management for me. Look, I can't pledge anything. I have nothing to pledge. There's no physical collateral, right? Land is not, for us, land is not collateralizable actually in India, because we are not, we are not permanently, land can go into cases, right? So in India, we are not, unlike UK, we are not done a good job here. So land is uncollateralizable property, but we have nothing else. So we are setting up two things: portability of your data and credentials, and interoperability of systems. That's what regulator is focusing on. And focusing on saying, if we can do that through a set of digital infrastructure, the way countries build physical infrastructure, like highways and airports and all roadways and ports and so on, for economy to boom, we also need to build digital infrastructure that allows this digital highways to form, that allows interoperability and portability, on top of which innovation can happen. So they are saying regulator can mean thinking of what is that infrastructure, minimum infrastructure I need to put in that allows interoperability, portability, and innovation. That's the regulator's focus. The second part of the focus is the actual building of this digital infrastructure, which is like, identity infrastructure, DigiLocker, credentialing infrastructure, data infrastructure, like account aggregator, health stack, ONDC, commerce infrastructure we are building now. Then on top of that, vibrant, innovating young folks like all of you who would probably raise funds like crazy and, blow it up and, do good stuff and bad stuff and whatever you want to do. But really, innovation is very critical. So India model is about creating the legal interoperability, portability backing, creating infrastructure and letting the market drive diverse innovation, absolute diverse innovation. And it doesn't mean private market. So we use the word Sarkar, Samaj and Bazaar. That means government, society and market. Okay, so Sarkar, Samaj, Bazaar, we believe unless all three plays out together in harmony, we can't solve India's complex problems. Very complex they are. Health is no more health issues. There are actually environmental issues, water issues, air issue, like in Delhi, for example. And everything is connected. And when it's connected, it's multivariable, complex systems that can't be solved by launching an app. Okay, the app store. That's not how you think about it. So you need to actually allow very foundational readiness of what we call digital building blocks. Identity as a building block, payment as a building block, data as a building block. It is interoperable building block that allows, hopefully, it allows youngsters to believe, okay, today, like Zerodha, Nitin, thinking about, wow, unlike 10 years ago, if 80% of the people have bank account, and if I can move money through UPI for 1/700th of a dollar, that's all the cost of UPI to moving money, like unlike any place in the world. It's not 3% and 5% and all that thing, right? It's so cheap, it's utility. And if everybody has bank account, if everybody can do this and everybody has data and everybody has smartphone, could I reimagine savings? That's what the innovation. So it's about combinatorial innovation that you have to think about. If this is available to you, how do you combine these building blocks to reimagine? And if you don't reimagine, none of this infrastructure all of us are working on is useful. You lay the highway, no one drives. There's no economy. There's nobody moving goods. Then what's the use? So it's like that. We have to build digital highways, but it is left to many of you to actually reimagine the possibilities of financial solutions, social protection solutions, savings, health solution, access to health, affordability of healthcare, wellness solution, like Healthify Me and a lot of these companies are now doing. They believe sickness is not what we should be addressing. Wellness is what we should be addressing, because if 1 billion people fall sick, no systems can deal with it, not even insurance systems, will just collapse. So we are better off being, focusing on wellness. So there are a lot of companies, private companies, making, a move at it, at scale. And no more that you are worried about going after the 20 million. We only had 20 million people with credit cards. So we are almost always dealing with 20 to 50 million people in India traditionally. It's no more the case. Now you can imagine a digital company, a financial inclusion, health inclusion, maybe a skilling, job. You can reimagine. We are working on a next generation, absolutely open internet scale job discovery infrastructure, job and skilling infrastructure. On top of it, we would want MyGates of the world, companies like MyGate and all these companies who are actually working with security personnel or delivery boys and drivers and so on, or women working in those campuses, to be upskilled, cross-skilled, and look for opportunity that can give them differentiated income and social protection. But who will build these products? All of you. And if you don't build and leverage this infrastructure, it will be a shame for us.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I think what you describe as such important foundation for what we call the digital economy of the future,
Absolutely.
Right? And to my last question, I would like to, since you described so well all the inspiration, all the great work that you've done so far at scale, what is your next frontier, the fourth inning that you alluded to earlier?
Not yet. I'm fourth innings is my personal innings, so that I would play much later when I'm older, really older. Yeah, maybe another 10, 15 years. Maybe when I'm 70 years old, something like that. I'll do fourth innings. But for now, what are we building? So we built, look at the somewhat serendipity. I don't think we imagined in 2010 that we will build this in this order. This will come together. But we could see the trends, though. We could see the trends of Indians are very aspirational, and we are a very young country, almost below 35. And that allows to say, if only we get valued in their hands, they would lap it up. It was obvious to us because we already saw the Nokia effect of the first generation phones. In 90s, we had to wait 5 years and 10 years for a phone connection, right? In India, we would never get a phone connection. So we just changed all that. And we really saw the people leveraging that to their daily job needs and everything else, which is great. And you don't have to teach them technology. It ceased to become a technology in their hands. That's what's really happening, right? They just embrace it so well that actually they don't think it as a technology. They just use it. It's like WhatsApp today. Everybody's on WhatsApp. I don't know what they do with it, but hopefully something useful. I know a lot of businesses conduct WhatsApp businesses, but we also bring down WhatsApp every function festival saying good mornings and all that thing. So Indians are notorious in bringing WhatsApp down because we send so much of good morning messages. I think they keep bringing it down. But I think what we are really thinking about, we build identity credentialing infrastructure through DigiLocker, payment infrastructure through UPI. We then built data infrastructure through DEPA, data empowerment and protection architecture, which is what account aggregator is based on, which is what our health data framework, completely decentralized data ownership. Basically, there's no central database in which anyone is collecting data, but you can unify the data like the way you unify money, into your control, and then it's all digitally signed and it's machine readable. So why is it machine readability important? Because when I share that data now with a lending organization, we are currently doing a pilot where SMEs, small medium enterprises, with zero paperwork, can harness their GST, which is our national tax system. So their tax payment data for the last 6 months and bank data for the last 6 months or any other bill payment data, all digitally transfer that consent to share with the lender. Lender is running an underwriting algorithm right on that data because it's digitally signed. So it means I can trust that data is not tampered with. You didn't put an extra zero just to prove, right? All that stuff. We can't create fake certificates and fake credentials and fake data, right? Because it's digitally signed. And then machine readability allows algorithmic underwriting rather than human being flipping papers. Because the moment cost is very high, only few people can be targeted. You have to plummet the cost, not an order of one, order of two, right? So SEBI, our capital market, onboarding is a great example of these changes. So pre-Zerodha days, mutual fund, Indians could not save to mutual fund. A mutual fund industry is one of the best, well-regulated industry in the country. They could not save into mutual fund organization because mutual fund distributor. So if you're a distributor company, you can the cost of onboarding a customer, signing up a customer was 1,500 rupees, about $20 US dollars. But their commission, mutual fund commission is capped at 0.5, 50 bips. So 0.5% commission if you're getting, I need to actually write $4,000 worth of check or 300,000 rupees, 3 lakh rupees in Indian terms has to be given before the customer is even viable customer. I will not even call you if you're not writing a $4,000. And with our $100, $200 earning, it's impossible for people to write 4,000. So our capital market was stagnated at 22 million people. 900 million adults. Out of that, 22 million people have access to mutual fund. That's a shame. Where did you think your driver or a maid is saving money? Completely informal. On roadside, all kinds of informal money saving schemes they run. But you and I, all of us have formalized. So formalization of that economy, formalization of that 500 million people is super critical for us. Now, today, with our digital technologies, with UPI, Aadhaar, DigiLocker, e-sign, which is a digital signature, SEBI, our regulator, has allowed paperless mutual fund subscription, which brought the cost down to 20 rupees.
Wow.
15 to 20 rupees, which is what, 1/5 of a dollar, 1/7 of a dollar. That's the cost of that. Suddenly allowed the same mutual fund distributor to launch an app to say, I don't even need to call you. I can actually get you to be a good customer and still save, 500 rupees, 1,000 rupees is no more a big deal for systematic investors, which is why the SIP schemes have now penetrated everybody. So we're really what we are doing fundamentally is to bring formalization of economy and opening up opportunity the way the top of the spectrum, top of you, all of you have access to, to everyone. Everyone can do digital payments. Everyone has a bank account. Everyone can do savings. Everyone should be able to get lending, provided you have good data and you have good history and you have good reasonable. If you behave well, of course, it's not equal opportunity, it's equitable. It's equity we are after, It's the equity of access. The one we are doing right now, and I'll end with that, is again, totally wild, crazy idea that we started in 2017. So UPI we started in 2014. 2013 we started discussing, but 2014 we started working on the protocol. 2015 we did a pilot. 2016 demonetization. Before that we had launched, thankfully. So demonetization time it sort of helped. But from 2016 to last month we did 6.2 billion transaction UPI, and India now does more real-time money transaction than China plus UK plus US all combined.
Wow.
Okay, we do much more. We are just blown through the roof. Okay?
Incredible.
It's all in the last 6 years. This non-linear or exponential growth is only possible if you imagine an unbundled digital building block approach that allows many of you, entrepreneurs and innovators, to combine the same building blocks into wide array of solutioning for that last lady who is out there on the street side selling vegetables and so on. And today in Bangalore, when you come, actually you'll say, they will stare at you, saying that if you say, I don't have change or cash, there's a QR code, why don't you pay? Right? It's just, because they know QR codes are a way of receiving money from me. They won't make payments yet, but they receive. They all become a friction-free receptacle of money for them. From government can send them directly, people can send them directly, and that allows. Yesterday I was speaking to a person in Jaipur, a businessman. He was saying, now I get my money. There's no excuse for my customer not to pay. Otherwise, they would say, oh, I forgot my cash, I forgot my checkbook, and all the things you used to do. Okay? And now they say, that's okay, you have a mobile phone anywhere, anytime, send me the money. I'm not sending you the product. So the cash, the cycles have reduced. So 2017, post UPI, we were thinking, if UPI unbundled payments, we took the payment from the banks became a store of value, the app became the interacting point, and we unbundled it. Otherwise, you could only use it through internet banking portal or bank app, right? We separated those two, and then we exploded, right? Many apps and many merchants, and we went to 50 million, 60 million merchants and so on in no time. We were thinking, could we do the same design approach of not a platform thinking, but what's called a network thinking? UPI is a network. UPI is not a platform. There's no one platform called UPI. UPI is many apps, many banks, many store values, many wallets, many merchant acquisition touchpoints connected through a protocol, a unifying protocol. Hence, it's called Unified Payment Interface, by the way. That interface was designed to be unifying, not uniform. We were not looking for one app that does everything. because diversity is what we want. So uniformity is not what we want. But unifying allows scale to the country. So we went from 300 million people now transacting and so on, right? In no time. We were asking the same question. Could we create a decentralized, open network like internet? If UPI did FinTernet, it did payment internet, could we imagine the same thing to what Uber is trying or Amazon is trying? What is Uber trying? Almost all platform plays, the two-sided platform plays, are about acquiring customers by giving you good drugs, a lot of good deals, right? All kinds of coupons and freebies and so on. And then you say, this is the best thing ever, sliced bread, and it's awesome. And then drivers love it because they used to get free phones. People quit, engineers and bank folks who working in the bank became Uber drivers in India, by the way, because they were making 70,000 rupees. That on an average, Indians make 20,000 rupees, that base, okay? But once you capture what the difference between that central platform, what's called a technology intermediary. The technology intermediary becomes so powerful that the customer deals start drying out. They still care about it. Customers are not so bad because finally customers are customer. Suppliers are always an hardship because that's a back end. So drivers, they cut down every possible. Today, 16 hours people drive every day and they barely make 18,000, 20,000 rupees. With cost of gas, even in the US, with all the war and everything else, cost of gas has gone up, cost of living, inflation is crazy, and it's no more viable to be a driver. So it's very tough. This is what the platform economy. The same play happen in Airbnb or Zomato, Swiggy, the food delivery platforms. It's a very typical play of acquire customers, acquire supply side providers, provide them good value. They provide brilliant value and very good apps, very good customer experiences, no confusion return, money back. Amazon does that. Amazon is very good at customer service. Always continue to excel in that. But the negative effect is a systemic risk of a country like ours, large country. Even with Uber with so much penetration does only barely 3% of the urban transport transactions in the country. 97% of the urban transport is actually happening outside Uber, right? Today, Delhi Metro alone does more transactions than Uber countrywide. So you can imagine urban transport is not solved yet. We are not solved. So imagining one taxi app will somehow solve it. So we were thinking, could we reimagine this instead of a platform thinking, could we reimagine a network thinking where many platforms, metro and buses and taxis and auto rickshaws and similarly, or the food guys, the hospitality and so on, could they coexist in a network that consumers can discover them and transact directly? If that can happen, then we are powerfully opened up exactly what internet did to democratization of if you have a WordPress engine and if you are running a Ubuntu server on the internet, and if you write well, by the way, if you don't write well, nobody cares for you. If you write well, you are king. You have a lot of followers. That tells me that you don't need a tech platform. If you are a good provider of a service, information, product, you need access to customer directly. And that's when we started Beckon Protocol. Beckon Protocol is an open source effort, beckonprotocol.io, BECKN protocol. O is not there. There's no O in Beckon, beckoning, word beckoning. So Beckon Protocol. Then we launched ONDC. ONDC is India's absolutely crazy, ambitious goal of creating a decentralized commerce network that allows small, medium enterprises gig workers, all of them to be connected onto the grid. ONDC, imagine like a grid. And you can actually, consumers can discover them, consumer can interact with them, book something with them, and fulfill that transaction without any intermediate platform, with no platform in the middle. Completely wacko imagination, but what do we lose, right? Anyway, we are all just midlife sitting around doing open source work. So you can as well imagine. But India needs it because our millions and few hundred millions of what we call business of one or business of two people cannot be subservient to a platform model. Rather, they need to be democratically accessed to the whole market. So whether it's a kirana shop, what you call a local shop, or a restaurant. Today, restaurant cannot survive if they don't list themselves in Zomato or Swiggy. They just die. But people who are actually putting capital is in that restaurant. Somebody is spending money building a kitchen, cloud kitchen. Maybe somebody is baking great cakes. Somebody is building some, good stuff. But if they can't get to the market without giving 30% commission to the only choice I have, or the duopoly or a monopoly I have, that's not a good model to be in for us. So ONDC is that attempt. So we are in that journey, just beginning. We are in the first few months of it. Maybe 5 years later, we might be an utter failure or a crazy success.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it'll be one of a crazy success given India's so far journey. We'll make it happen, I think. That's going to set the model. And the entire work behind this work is open source and digital public good already for every country. Now we are starting in Gambia. In Africa, we are opening a market. Brazil is interested in opening up a mobility network. And a couple of European countries are very, very keen to actually, because this is no more a first world or a developing world problem. Equitable economic opportunity is everybody's problem. And platform economy has come to a lot of questions, which is why EU and all is putting up a lot of laws against, and most of the countries even banning Uber and all that thing, right? So it's a very negative reaction. And our answer is not to ban them, but have more of them, but don't monopolize it. And if you can have that balance of both, then we are win-win. But because we can't go and throw them out, we need innovators. So, but we don't need one innovator to take over the country. That's all we
love it. This is exactly what I call democratizing opportunities for everyone to create an equitable future. Yeah. What a great aspiration. And I know I could go on and on for a long time with you. It feels like we share a common path and now we are converging. And I would be so honored to bring you to some of the developing countries I'm working in right now. And there's so much to learn from you. And today we are getting this incredible lowdown from the guru of technology that meets public scale good for democratizing these access to technology and value to the consumer and citizens around in India and now spreading to many parts of the world. I am exceedingly honored today to have this fireside chat with you. And I think the audience should do it. What a learning. And this is one that we will all remember for life. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions. However, I'm going to compromise and say I have a next session for executive seminar. If you would like to join me for a few minutes, for those who have questions that they didn't have a chance to ask right now, so I will compromise. And I know some of you might want to move to other session, but for those who have questions, you can stay on with me on the executive session, and then Dr. Pramod will stay on for a few minutes to answer your questions. So thank you once again. And we have a little token of appreciation from HPair. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.